never thought my golden years would taste so bitter. After 43 years as a school librarian in Brookhaven, a quiet suburb of Atlanta, I'd imagined retirement would be peaceful. A time to finally read all those books I'd cataloged but never had time to open. A chance to spoil my grandchildren and make up for the moments I missed with my own son while juggling work and single motherhood after Frank died. Frank. Sometimes I still reach across the bed at night, expecting to find his warmth. 22 years he's been gone, and still the habit remains. He was the love of my life, taken too soon by a heart attack at 53. Left me alone to raise our son James, who was just finishing college then. I managed. More than managed. I thrived in my own quiet way. Paid off our modest ranch-style home on Peachtree Road. Put money away each month, living frugally but comfortably. I never remarried, never wanted to. Instead, I poured my love into James and later his wife Melanie and their 2 children, Emma and Tyler. "Mom, you're the rock of this family," James would say on Mother's Day, his arm around me, Melanie nodding in agreement. Rock. Funny word that. Rocks get taken for granted, stepped on, sometimes thrown away when they're no longer useful. I never saw it coming. Maybe that's what hurts the most. It started with a Caribbean cruise. I've been saving for years, tucking away my pension and Social Security bit by bit. $27,842 set aside specifically to take the whole family, James, Melanie, Emma, and Tyler, and myself, on a 2-week Royal Caribbean cruise through the islands. It was going to be my big gift to them, my way of creating lasting memories. The Diamond Princess sails in June, I told James over Sunday dinner at my house last November. I've been looking at the family suites. 2 bedrooms for you 4 and a smaller cabin nearby for me. What do you think? James and Melanie exchanged a glance I couldn't quite read. That sounds really generous, Mom, James said, serving himself another helping of my pot roast. But June is tricky with the kids' summer activities. Emma has volleyball camp and Tyler might do that coding program. Well, there's also an August sailing, I offered, trying to hide my disappointment. I'd specifically checked their calendar, the magnetic one they'd given me for Christmas, with all their activities marked, and June looked clear. Or even during spring break. Let us check our schedules and get back to you, Melanie said, her voice cheerful but dismissive. I nodded and changed the subject. As a mother, you develop an intuition. Something felt off, but I pushed the feeling aside. 2 weeks later, I called James to follow up. About the cruise, I started. Oh, right, he said. His voice sounded distant, like he was multitasking. We've been meaning to talk to you about that. Could we discuss it this Sunday? Of course, I said. Though I felt that familiar twinge again, like a paper cut, small, but surprisingly painful. Sunday came, and I prepared their favorites, fried chicken, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, and peach cobbler. The house smelled wonderful. I'd even used the good china, the set Frank and I received as wedding gifts that I only brought out for special occasions. They were late, nearly an hour. When they finally arrived, Emma and Tyler rushed past me with barely a hello, eyes glued to their phones. No hugs for Grandma today. Sorry we're late, Mom, James said, kissing my cheek. Traffic on the highway was brutal. It wasn't. I checked the traffic app before they arrived. Clear roads all the way from their subdivision in Dunwoody to my place in Brookhaven. 15 minutes, 20 tops. We sat down to eat. The conversation felt strained, revolving around superficial topics. The weather, a new restaurant they'd tried, Tyler's math test, no mention of the cruise. I waited until dessert to bring it up. So, about our family vacation, I said, serving slices of cobbler. I've been looking at the options for spring break. The 7-day Eastern Caribbean tour looks lovely. Melanie glanced at James. He cleared his throat. Mom, about that. We've been thinking, it's very generous, but the kids are at an age where... We already have spring break plans, Melanie interrupted. We promised the kids we'd take them to Universal Studios. Oh. I tried to hide my hurt. I didn't know. It was a recent decision, James explained quickly. Tyler's been begging to see the Harry Potter world. I understand, I said, though I didn't. Not really. What about summer, then? Another glance between them. Actually, Mom, James began slowly, we've been thinking that maybe a big family cruise isn't the best idea right now. The kids have their activities, and Melanie and I were hoping to do some house renovations this year. I see. I felt my smile freeze on my face. Well, there's no rush. Maybe next year then. Definitely, Melanie said with a brightness that didn't reach her eyes. Next year would be perfect. I didn't push further. The cobbler turned to ash in my mouth. After they left, I sat alone in my living room, the ticking of Frank's old mantel clock the only sound. Something wasn't right. I'd raised James to be straightforward, honest. What wasn't he telling me? Over the next few months, I noticed the pattern of Sunday dinners changing. They became less frequent. Excuses mounted, work commitments, the children's activities, Melanie's book club. When they did come, the visits grew shorter. Then came the most painful shift. They stopped asking me to babysit the grandchildren. For years. I'd kept Emma and Tyler every other Saturday while James and Melanie had their date night. Suddenly they had a new sitter, a college student from down the street. She's studying education, Melanie explained when I asked. And the kids are at an age where they relate better to someone younger. You understand. I didn't, but I nodded and swallowed my hurt. Christmas was particularly difficult. For the first time, they didn't invite me to their home for the holiday. Instead, James dropped by briefly on Christmas Eve with presents and a foil-wrapped plate of Melanie's cookies. We're doing Christmas morning, just the four of us this year, he explained. Melanie thinks it's important for the kids to have those nuclear family traditions. Nuclear family. As if I were some distant relative rather than their grandmother. I spent Christmas Day alone, watching old movies and trying not to feel sorry for myself. New Year came and went. Winter melted into spring. The cruise deadline for booking the summer sailings approached, and still no word from James about our family vacation. I finally called him one evening in late March. James, I said, I need to know about the cruise. The payment deadline is coming up, and if we want good cabins, I need to book soon. A long pause. Then, Mom, I thought we discussed this. This year isn't good for us. You said maybe next year, I reminded him. But I've been thinking, life is short. I'm not getting any younger at 65. I'd really love to do this with all of you while I still can. Another pause, longer this time. Mom, I need to be honest with you, he finally said. His voice sounded strained. We appreciate the offer, but a 2-week cruise with all of us, it's just not something we're interested in right now. The words hit me like a physical blow. I see, I said, my voice small. Well, I don't want to force anyone. I just thought it would be nice to have some special family time. It's a generous thought, he said, his tone softening slightly. Maybe we can do something smaller, a weekend trip somewhere closer. I agreed half-heartedly and ended the call soon after. Setting the phone down, I stared out my kitchen window at the dogwood tree Frank had planted the year James was born. It was in full bloom now, delicate white flowers catching the late afternoon light. What wasn't he telling me? The question nagged at me for days. I'd always had an open, honest relationship with my son. Now I felt a growing distance, a wall I couldn't see over or around. It was pure chance that led me to the truth. In early April, I ran into Patty Whitaker at the Kroger on Peachtree Road. Patty's daughter went to high school with James, and they still kept in loose touch through social media. "Eleanor," she exclaimed, embracing me in the produce section. "How are you? I was just thinking about you the other day when I saw those pictures of James and his family on that gorgeous cruise. You must have had a wonderful time." The fluorescent lights suddenly seemed too bright, the store too loud. My hands gripped the shopping cart handle to steady myself. "What cruise?" I managed to ask. Patty's smile faltered. "The Caribbean one they took in February, during the kids' winter break. All those beautiful photos on Facebook, the islands, the ship. James said something about it being a family trip." She paused, noticing my expression. "Oh dear, weren't you with them?" "No," I said softly. "No, I wasn't." "Oh." Patty looked mortified. "I'm so sorry, I just assumed." "It's fine," I assured her, summoning a smile from somewhere. My memory isn't what it used to be. Of course, the February cruise. I must have forgotten. She didn't believe me. That was clear from her expression. But she kindly changed the subject. We chatted about the unseasonably warm weather, her new grandchild, the rising cost of groceries. All the while, my mind was spinning. A cruise in February. My family had gone on a cruise without me. I paid for my few items and drove home in a daze. Inside my house, I sat at my computer, the one James had set up for me years ago, to stay connected. I rarely used social media, found it confusing and preferred phone calls or visits, but I had a Facebook account. James had created it for me, showing me how to find photos of the grandchildren. I logged in with shaking hands and navigated to James's profile. There they were, dozens of photos from a Royal Caribbean cruise. The same cruise line I'd researched, the same islands I'd dreamed of visiting. James, Melanie, Emma, and Tyler, all smiling in the tropical sun, posing by the ship's railing, snorkeling in crystal clear waters, eating at the captain's table, the dates on the posts, February 15th, 22. Winter break, just as Patty said. I scrolled through photo after photo, each one a fresh wound. They'd gone. They'd taken my dream vacation without me. While I was home alone, thinking they were too busy for a cruise, they were sailing the Caribbean. But how? The question formed even as the sick feeling in my stomach grew. Royal Caribbean cruises weren't cheap, especially for a family of 4. James was a mid-level manager at an insurance company. Melanie worked part-time as a dental hygienist. They lived comfortably but not extravagantly. Their house in Dunwoody was nice but modest. They drove sensible cars a few years old. Where had the money come from? A cold realization washed over me. The joint account. After Frank died, I'd added James to my main checking account as a precaution. "In case something happens to me," I'd told him, "so you can pay my bills, handle my affairs." It seemed the sensible thing to do as I aged. I never monitored the account closely. My pension and Social Security went in automatically. My bills were modest and predictable. I kept a separate savings account for my special funds, like the cruise money. But the bulk of my monthly income flowed through that joint checking account. With trembling fingers, I logged into my online banking, scrolled back to January. There it was. A withdrawal of $12,785 on January 10th. The description simply read, "Transfer." I'd never made that transfer. My chest felt tight. The room seemed to spin slightly. I closed the laptop and sat in the gathering darkness of my living room, trying to process this betrayal. My own son had taken money from my account. My own son had used my money to take my dream vacation without me. My own son had lied to my face for months. The next morning, I awoke with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. The hurt was still there, a dull ache behind my ribs. But something else had taken precedence, resolve. I would confront him, not with tears or accusations, but with dignity and the simple power of truth. I called and invited him to dinner. Just him, not Melanie or the kids. I need to discuss something important, I said, about my finances and future planning. He agreed readily enough. Sure, Mom. I can come by Thursday after work. Thursday arrived. I prepared a simple meal, meatloaf, his childhood favorite. But I had no intention of softening the blow. Some betrayals cut too deep for comfort food to soothe. James arrived at 6:30, bringing a bottle of wine. Thought we could use this, he said, kissing my cheek. Finances can be stressful to talk about. If only he knew. We sat at the kitchen table, the same oak table where I'd helped him with homework, where we'd shared meals after Frank died, where I'd supported him through college applications and his first heartbreak. I served the food. We made small talk. He told me about a promotion he was up for, about Tyler's science project, about Melanie's mother coming to visit next month. Finally, as we finished eating, I took a deep breath. James, I said quietly, I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth. His fork paused halfway to his mouth. Something in my tone must have alerted him. Of course, Mom, what is it? I looked directly into his eyes, Frank's eyes in shape and color, if not in honesty. In February, during winter break. Where did you and the family go? A flicker of something, alarm, guilt, crossed his face before he composed himself. We went to visit Melanie's cousin in Tampa, remember? I told you about it. The lie came so easily it staggered me. No, I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. You didn't go to Tampa. You went on a cruise, a Royal Caribbean cruise through the Caribbean. His face drained of color. Mom, I saw the photos, James, on Facebook. Patty Whitaker mentioned it when I ran into her at Kroger. He set his fork down, ran a hand through his hair, the same nervous gesture his father used to make. I can explain, he began. Can you? I asked. Can you explain why you took a family cruise without me? The very cruise I'd been planning to treat everyone to. He had the grace to look ashamed, at least. It wasn't... We didn't mean to exclude you. Really? The hurt was bubbling up now, threatening to overflow. Because it seems like that's exactly what you did. But what I really need you to explain. James, is the 12,108 paidlis you transferred from my account in January the money you took without asking? His eyes widened. For a moment he looked like the little boy who'd been caught drawing on the walls with permanent marker. Then his expression hardened. That money was for the family, he said defensively. Dad would have wanted us to use it. Your father, I said, my voice shaking slightly with suppressed anger, worked 60-hour weeks for 20 years to provide for this family. He would never have stolen from his mother. Stolen? James's face flushed. Mom, I'm on that account too. It wasn't stealing. What would you call taking money without permission then? What would you call lying to my face for months? What would you call going on my dream vacation without me? He had no answer for that. The worst part, I continued, the words flowing now that the dam had broken, isn't even the money. It's that you excluded me, deliberately. You knew how much that cruise meant to me. You knew I'd been planning it for years, and you took it away. It wasn't like that, he protested weakly. Then what was it like, James? Please help me understand how my son could do this to me. He stared at his plate for a long moment. When he looked up, his expression had changed. The defensive anger was gone, replaced by something colder, more calculated. Fine, you want the truth? The truth is it wouldn't have been a vacation with you there. It would have been work. Each word was a slap. The kids can't relax around you because they have to be on their best behavior. Melanie can't stand how you critique her parenting with those little comments of yours. And He hesitated, then pushed forward. I'm tired, Mom. Tired of the guilt trips. Tired of the poor me all alone routine. Tired of being made to feel like I'm never doing enough. I sat very still, absorbing the blows. We needed a break, he continued. A real family vacation, just us. No obligations. No walking on eggshells. No catering to your needs. My needs, I echoed, the words barely audible. Yes, your needs. Do you have any idea how exhausting it is? The weekly dinners, the constant check-ins, the expectation that we'll include you in everything? I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe past the knot in my throat. And the money? He added, his voice hardening. After everything I do for you, managing your affairs, checking on your house, dealing with your medical appointments, I deserve some compensation. In that moment, I didn't recognize him. This wasn't the boy I'd raised. This wasn't Frank's son. When I asked about the cruise I paid for the family, I said slowly, finding my voice. My son said, "We already went. Sorry for forgetting you." Is that really what our relationship has come to, James? He had the decency to look away. I want you to leave now, I said quietly. Mom? And I want the money returned, all of it, by the end of the month. He scoffed. That's not possible. It's spent. Then we have nothing more to discuss. I stood up from the table. I'll be contacting the bank tomorrow to remove you from my accounts, and I'll be speaking with a lawyer about how to recover the stolen funds. Stolen? His voice rose. You're seriously going to accuse your own son of theft? After everything I do for you? I looked at him, really looked, and felt a strange calm descend. The hurt was still there, but something had shifted. In seeing him clearly for the first time, I'd been freed from something. What exactly do you do for me, James? When was the last time you called just to chat? Not because you needed something. When was the last time you brought the grandchildren over just because they wanted to see me? Not because you needed a babysitter. When was the last time you asked about my life, my feelings, my dreams? He had no answer. I raised you to be better than this, I said softly. Your father would be ashamed. It was a low blow, but a true one. James flinched as if I'd struck him. You can't mean that, he said, his voice suddenly smaller. I've never meant anything more in my life. I walked to the front door and opened it. Please leave. After a moment's hesitation, he gathered his things and walked out. I closed the door behind him and leaned against it, finally allowing the tears to come. That night, alone in my house, I did something I hadn't done since Frank died. I got angry. Not the controlled, quiet anger I'd shown James, but real, raw fury. I screamed into a pillow. I threw a glass against the wall and watched it shatter. I cried until my throat was raw and my eyes were swollen. And then, exhausted but strangely cleansed, I sat at my kitchen table and began to plan. The next morning, I called Capital One Bank and removed James from my accounts. The customer service representative, a kind woman named Denise, didn't ask many questions when I explained that my son had made unauthorized withdrawals. Unfortunately, Mrs. Campbell, this happens more often than you'd think, she said gently. I'm going to help you set up some additional security measures. Next, I called my friend Susan's son, Michael, who was an attorney specializing in elder law. I'd known Michael since he was in diapers. Susan and I had been colleagues at the library for 30 years. Elder financial abuse is a serious matter, Eleanor, Michael told me after I'd explained the situation, especially when it involves a joint account holder. There are steps we can take, but I want to be honest. These cases can be complicated when family is involved. I understand, I said, but I need to do this. Not just for the money, but for my self-respect. I admire your resolve, he said. Let's meet tomorrow and discuss your options. That afternoon, I did something I'd been avoiding for months. I drove to Autumn Leaves Retirement Community and took a tour. The place was nothing like the dreary nursing home I'd imagined. The apartments were bright and modern. There was a library, a garden, a community kitchen for residents who enjoyed cooking. Activities every day. People my age, engaged and active. We have a 2-bedroom unit becoming available next month, the admissions director Gloria told me. It has a lovely view of the courtyard garden. How much? I asked. She named a figure that would have made me balk 6 months ago. Now I merely nodded. I'll need to sell my house, I said, but I'm interested. Take your time, Gloria said with a smile. That unit will need some renovations before it's ready, but I can put you on the list. On the drive home, I felt lighter than I had in years. A plan was forming. Not a plan for revenge, exactly, but for reclaiming my life, my dignity, my future. The next week passed in a flurry of activity. I met with Michael and provided all the documentation he requested, bank statements showing the unauthorized transfer, printouts of the cruise photos from Facebook, a timeline of events. He filed a police report on my behalf. A necessary step, he explained, though he warned me the police might view it as a civil rather than criminal matter given the joint account. I also met with a realtor, a brisk, efficient woman named Tamara, who walked through my house making notes and suggestions. The market in Brookhaven is hot right now, she told me. With some minor updates, fresh paint, new carpeting in the bedrooms, perhaps updating the bathroom fixtures, you could list at $475,000, maybe more. The figure stunned me. Frank and I had paid $87,000 for the house in 1981. How quickly could it sell? I asked. In this neighborhood, with the schools and proximity to downtown, if we price it right, you could have offers within a week of listing. A week. The thought of leaving the home where I'd lived for 43 years, where I'd raised my son, where every corner held the memories of Frank, should have terrified me. Instead, it felt like opening a window in a stuffy room, a chance to breathe fresh air. James called several times that week. I let the calls go to voicemail. His messages ranged from defensive, "You're blowing this out of proportion," to contrite, "I know I made a mistake," to angry, "After everything I've done for you." I listened to each one, then deleted it without responding. Melanie texted once, "James is really upset. Can you please talk to him?" I didn't reply. Emma, my 16-year-old granddaughter, sent the most painful message. "Grandma, are you okay? Dad won't tell us what happened. Can we come see you?" I almost broke then. Almost called her back. But I remembered the cruise photos, Emma smiling, clearly having a wonderful time on a vacation that should have included me. How much had she known? Had they explained to her why Grandma wasn't invited? Or had they fed her the Tampa story too? I texted her back. "I'm fine. Sweetheart, just busy with some life changes. I'll reach out soon." It wasn't the whole truth, but it wasn't a lie either. 10 days after our confrontation, James showed up at my door unannounced. It was a Saturday morning. I'd been in the backyard, cutting fresh roses for the kitchen table when the doorbell rang. I knew it was him before I opened the door. A mother knows her child's presence, even when that child has broken her heart. "Mom," he said when I opened the door. He looked terrible, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, clothes rumpled as if he'd slept in them. "Please, we need to talk." I didn't invite him in. Instead, I stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind me. "I'm listening," I said. He ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "I've been trying to call you." "I know. Look, I know I messed up. The money, the cruise. I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry." The apology sounded rehearsed. Empty. "Is that all?" I asked. He blinked, thrown off script. "What do you mean?" "I mean, is that all you came to say? That you're sorry for taking my money and excluding me from a family vacation I'd been planning for years? What do you want me to say?" Frustration crept into his voice. I said, I'm sorry. What I want, I said calmly, is for you to understand what you did. Not just to my bank account, but to me, to our relationship, to the trust I placed in you. He looked away. Michael Stevens called me, he muttered. Said something about elder abuse charges. Is that really necessary, Mom? Taking legal action against your own son. So that's why he was here. Not remorse. Fear of consequences. What would you suggest instead, James? That I just forget it happened? Pretend my son didn't steal from me? It wasn't stealing. The defensive anger was back. And it's not like you can't afford it. You're sitting on a paid-off house worth nearly $500,000. I stared at him, genuinely shocked. So that justifies taking my money without asking, because I have assets. No, but, he fumbled. It's just, we needed that vacation, Mom. The kids were going through a rough time at school. Melanie was stressed with her mother's health issues. I was up for a promotion and worried about it. We needed to get away. Just us. And you couldn't have explained that to me? Asked for help instead of taking it. I shook my head. The James I raised would never have done that. His expression hardened. Yeah, well, the mom I grew up with wouldn't have called the cops on her own kid. The words hung in the air between us. Perhaps, I said quietly. We don't know each other as well as we thought. We stood in silence for a long moment, the spring breeze rustling the azaleas I'd planted along the porch steps. Somewhere down the street, a lawnmower droned. So what happens now? James finally asked. You press charges? We go to court? Is that what you want? What I want, I said, is my money back. All of it. He laughed bitterly. I told you it's gone, spent. We can't just magically produce $13,000. Then we do have a problem, I said. Because I'm not dropping this, James, not this time. What does that mean? Not this time. His eyes narrowed. It means I've spent too many years making excuses for you. For the way you've gradually pushed me to the margins of your life. The missed dinners, the cancelled plans. The way you've taught my grandchildren that I'm an obligation, not someone to love. His face flushed. That's not fair. No, it's not, I agreed. None of this is fair. But it's the reality we're dealing with. He stared at me. This stranger who was my son. So what do you want from me? Besides the money? I considered the question carefully. I want you to think about the example you're setting for Emma and Tyler. About how we treat family. About honesty and respect. I took a deep breath. And I want space to figure out what our relationship looks like going forward. Space? Alarm crept into his voice. What does that mean? It means I'm making some changes in my life. Big ones. And I need time to process everything that's happened. What kind of changes? Now he looked genuinely concerned. Mom, what are you planning? That's for me to know right now, I said. As for the money, I'm giving you until the end of next month to repay it. If you don't, Michael will proceed with the legal options we've discussed. A month? That's impossible. Then I suggest you start looking for solutions, I said. Sell something, take out a loan, ask Melanie's parents. Figure it out, like I had to figure out how to raise you alone after your father died. The mention of Frank sobered him. For a brief moment I saw a flash of the boy I'd raised, sensitive, thoughtful, aware of others. I really am sorry, Mom, he said. And this time it sounded sincere. I don't know what I was thinking. Neither do I, James, neither do I. I went back inside, leaving him on the porch. Through the window, I watched him stand there for a long moment before finally turning and walking to his car. The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind. I accepted Gloria's offer of the apartment at Autumn Leaves, putting down a deposit to secure it. Tamara, the realtor, brought in contractors to make the suggested updates to my house. Michael kept me updated on the legal proceedings, which were moving slowly but steadily. I began the monumental task of downsizing 43 years of life in a 4-bedroom house to fit into a 2-bedroom apartment. It was exhausting, emotionally and physically, but also unexpectedly liberating. Each item I sorted through, kept, donated, or discarded, felt like shedding a layer of the past. Frank's clothes, which I'd kept in the back of the closet all these years, my teaching materials from the library, James's childhood toys I'd preserved in the attic, photo albums documenting decades of family life. Some I kept, precious memories I couldn't bear to part with. Others I boxed up for James, Emma, and Tyler if they wanted them. Many I simply let go. Through it all, I maintained my distance from James. He called less frequently now, seeming to accept my need for space. Emma texted occasionally. I responded warmly but briefly, not ready yet to navigate the complicated waters of explaining the situation to my grandchildren. 1 month after our confrontation on the porch, my doorbell rang again. It was early evening, the soft May twilight casting long shadows across the front lawn. When I opened the door, James stood there, but not alone. Melanie was with him, looking uncomfortable but determined. "Mom," James said formally, "can we come in, please?" I hesitated, then nodded, stepping back to allow them entry. They noticed the changes immediately. The living room was half empty. Furniture sold or donated. Boxes lined the walls, neatly labeled. The family photos that had crowded the mantel were gone, leaving only the mantel clock that had been Frank's grandfather's. "What's all this?" James asked, looking around in confusion. "I'm moving," I said simply. "Moving?" Melanie echoed. "Where?" "Autumn Leaves Retirement Community. I've taken an apartment there, starting next month." James looked stunned. "But your house, this is your home." "It's being listed next week," I told him. "Tamara thinks it will sell quickly." "You're selling the house?" His voice rose in disbelief. Without even discussing it with me. The irony of his indignation was not lost on me. "I wasn't aware I needed your permission to make decisions about my life," I said coolly. "But—" He fumbled for words. "What about family dinners? Holidays? Where will we gather?" "In your home, I presume," I replied. "It's quite large enough." "That's not the point." He was getting angry now. "This is our family home, my childhood home." "Yes," I agreed. "And now it's time for it to be someone else's family home." Melanie laid a restraining hand on his arm. "James," she murmured, "remember why we're here." He took a deep breath, visibly collecting himself. "Right," he said. "We came because, well..." He reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew an envelope. "Here." I took it cautiously. Inside was a check, $12,185 exactly, the amount he'd taken. "How—" I began. "We took out a home equity loan," Melanie explained. Her voice was stiff but not unkind. "It was the only way we could get the full amount quickly." I stared at the check, emotions warring within me. Relief that they'd repaid the money. Sadness that it had come to this. A faint spark of hope that perhaps this was a step toward healing. "Thank you," I said finally. "I'll let Michael know the financial matter has been resolved." "So that's it?" James asked. "You get your money back and we just move on? Pretend none of this happened?" "No," I said, meeting his gaze directly. "We don't pretend. We acknowledge what happened and decide where we go from here." "And where is that exactly?" he asked, a hint of challenge in his voice. "You're selling our family home. Moving to a retirement community, shutting us out." "I'm reclaiming my life," I corrected him gently. "Setting boundaries. There's a difference." "But what about us?" he pressed. "What about Emma and Tyler? They missed their grandmother." I felt a pang at that. Despite everything, I missed my grandchildren desperately. "They're welcome to visit me at Autumn Leaves," I said. There's a lovely garden there, a game room the children might enjoy. It's not the same, James insisted. No, I agreed. It's not, but sometimes change is necessary. Melanie, who had been quiet until now, stepped forward. Eleanor, she said, using my first name, which she rarely did. I want you to know the cruise. It wasn't my idea. I didn't know about the money. James shot her a look of betrayal. Melanie, no, James, she deserves the truth. Melanie turned back to me. When James suggested the cruise, he told me he'd been saving for it. I had no idea he'd taken it from your account. Not until after, when you confronted him. I studied her face, looking for signs of deception. Found none. I believe you, I said finally. And I want you to know, she continued, that I've been uncomfortable with how we've treated you. The missed dinners. The excuses. It wasn't right. James looked between us, clearly feeling outnumbered. So this is what, an intervention? You two ganging up on me? No, I said. It's an opportunity. For honesty. For a fresh start, maybe. He slumped down onto the couch, one of the few pieces of furniture remaining in the room. I don't understand what happened, he said, more to himself than to us. When did I become this person? Taking money from my own mother? Lying to her face? It was the first genuine moment of self-reflection I'd seen from him since this all began. I don't know, James, I said, but I'd like to understand it too. We talked for hours that evening. Really talked in a way we hadn't in years. There were tears, from all of us. Accusations and defenses, hard truths spoken and acknowledged. James admitted feeling burdened by what he perceived as my neediness after Frank died. I was just starting my own life, he said, and suddenly I was all you had. I acknowledged that perhaps I had leaned on him too heavily. Your father's death left a void, I explained, and you were so much like him. It was comforting to have you close. Melanie confessed to resenting what she saw as my interference in their parenting. It felt like criticism, even when you didn't mean it that way, she said. Like nothing we did was good enough. I admitted that perhaps I'd overstepped at times. I only wanted to help, I said. But I see now how it might have felt controlling. We didn't resolve everything that night. Decades of unspoken resentments and misunderstandings couldn't be fixed in one conversation. But we made a start. A foundation to build upon. As they were leaving, James paused at the door. The house, he said. Are you sure about selling it? I nodded. I'm sure. It's time, James, for all of us to move forward. He looked around one last time, his eyes lingering on the empty spaces where family photos had hung, on the bare shelves once crowded with books and mementos. Can the kids come say goodbye to it? He asked. Before it sells? Of course, I said. I'd like that. The following Saturday, James brought Emma and Tyler to the house. We spent the day going through the remaining boxes, the children claiming keepsakes they wanted to remember the house by. Emma took a small watercolor of the garden that Frank had painted. Tyler chose his grandfather's chess set, the one I'd taught him to play on when he was 7. That evening, as the sun set over the backyard where James had played as a child, where Frank had barbecued on summer weekends, where I'd tended my beloved roses for decades, we ordered pizza and sat on the floor of the nearly empty living room. So what's your new place like, Grandma? Emma asked, wiping pizza sauce from her mouth. I showed them pictures on my phone. The bright apartment with its modern kitchen, the community spaces, the garden visible from my future balcony. It looks nice, she said cautiously. But aren't you sad to leave here? A little, I admitted. But I'm also excited. It's a new chapter. Can we visit you there? Tyler asked. At 12, he was still young enough to be direct. Anytime you want, I promised. There's a pool for residents and their guests. and an ice cream parlor in the main building. His eyes lit up. Really? Ice cream? Really? I laughed. And I expect frequent visits to help me eat it all. James watched our interaction with a complex expression, sadness, remorse, but also a glimmer of acceptance. Later, as they were preparing to leave, he lingered behind while Melanie took the children to the car. "Mom," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I really am sorry for everything." "I know," I said softly. "Do you think—" He hesitated. "Do you think we can fix this? Us?" I considered the question carefully. "I think we can build something new," I said finally. "Something honest, something based on who we are now, not who we were." He nodded slowly. "I'd like that." "So would I said, and meant it. The house sold within 5 days of being listed for $30,000 above asking price. The young couple who bought it had a 3-year-old daughter and a baby on the way. The little girl had immediately run to the bay window in the living room, the same window where James used to watch for Frank's car coming up the driveway, and declared it her special spot. It felt right. Somehow. Life continuing. New memories being made within those walls. My apartment at Autumn Leaves was everything I'd hoped for. Bright and modern, with large windows overlooking the community garden. I brought only what I truly treasured: Frank's clock, my favorite books, the quilt my mother had made for our wedding, a few select photographs. The rest I let go, another step in my journey toward reclaiming myself. 2 months after moving in, I used some of the proceeds from the house sale to book myself on a cruise. Not the family cruise I'd originally planned, but a solo adventure through the Mediterranean. Athens, Santorini, Rome, Barcelona. Places Frank and I had dreamed of visiting someday. The morning of my departure, I was surprised to find James, Melanie, and the children waiting outside Autumn Leaves with a banner. "Bon voyage, Grandma!" They drove me to the airport. As I was checking in, James pulled me aside. "I want you to have this," he said, pressing an envelope into my hand. Inside was $5,000 in traveler's checks. "It's not the full amount of what the cruise should have been, but Melanie and I wanted you to have something extra for excursions or shopping or whatever you want." "James—" "That's not necessary," I began. "It is," he insisted. "Please, take it as, I don't know, a down payment on rebuilding trust." I accepted the envelope. "Thank you. And Mom," he added, "I hope you have an amazing time. You deserve it." Standing at the rail of the cruise ship a week later, watching the sun set over Santorini, I thought about the strange journey that had brought me here. Not just the physical journey from Atlanta to Greece, but the emotional one. From betrayal to confrontation, from hurt to healing, from being a rock, taken for granted, stepped on, to being a woman with agency and purpose, worthy of respect. It wasn't a perfect resolution. James and I were still rebuilding, one careful conversation at a time. There were still moments of tension, old habits that died hard on both sides. But there was also a new honesty between us. A recognition of each other as flawed, complex individuals, rather than the simplified roles of dutiful son and needy mother we'd allowed ourselves to become. Emma and Tyler visited me at Autumn Leaves regularly now. Emma had joined the book club I'd started for residents and guests. Tyler was teaching me to play Minecraft on the tablet James had given me as a moving-in present. Life wasn't what I'd expected at 65. It was harder in some ways, the betrayal leaving scars that would never completely fade. But it was also richer, more authentic. I discovered strengths I never knew I had, made new friends, created a life that was truly mine. As the Greek islands faded into the twilight, I thought of something Frank used to say when we faced difficulties. Life doesn't always give you what you want. Ellie, sometimes it gives you what you need. He'd been right, as he often was. I hadn't wanted this painful awakening, this forced reinvention of myself and my relationship with my son. But perhaps it was what I needed, what we both needed. And as I turned from the railing to head to dinner, alone but not lonely, independent but not isolated, I felt Frank's presence beside me, approving of the woman I'd become, stronger than I knew, brave enough to demand honesty, wise enough to offer forgiveness, but only when earned. It wasn't the golden years I'd imagined. It was something better, something real. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left.